Well, thanks. So this has been an interesting topic because the kind of broader trend that I want to talk a little about today is actually aging and longevity. And I think the impact of aging and this on both our clients and the families that we work with, the work that we do and some of the services that we're offering to families, and then the skills that each of us need as we are sort of working in this kind of changing environment. And I don't think I need to spend much time on statistics around aging, but you see it every day in your family and in your work. But what was interesting is 150 years ago, the average age of someone here in this country was 40. That moved to 60 about 50 years ago, and today it's 80. And so there's a lot of people talking about whether or not in the next 25 years that's 100, or whether because of technology and medical advances that's going to shrink and we're going to see a much faster move to 100 as an average length of time that we're here. Right now we're seeing on an annual basis an extension of life of about 3 months. And so if you think about that and think about the families that you're serving and you think about your staff and you think of all of us, that has sort of huge implications. We're also in the midst of that with the boomers retiring at 10,000 a day. So what does it mean for families? And so many of us are working with 3 generations of families. That will be 4. What does that mean if you're working with 4 generations of families? What is the family dynamics of that? What is the change within the families of folks waiting to give up control? I think within our families, we're still, like many of you, waiting for this $15 trillion to sort of move into the generations, and folks are holding on to that. But what does that mean for a family that has 4 units and they're waiting, or 4 units in which folks don't get the reins until a much later period of time? On the planning side, are the tools that we're using, the flexibility that we need to spray income or to do other, I think, pieces across a much longer span? Are the investments that we're making likewise going to meet that gap? If you look at cash flow, that's going to be a major issue, I think, for all of our families, and how are we managing that through some of the vehicles that we're using. I think we all need to start thinking about some of that. I know many of you are, but it's a big piece of this. One interesting piece is entrepreneurship, and so all of us are working with business owners, and I think there's an opportunity here with a generation that is staying longer to impact the 3rd generation and potentially a 4th generation, because they're present in their lives. And so, but as we say always in our group, we have, like you, we have more time for every family, but what you do with that time is critical. So how are you purposeful about those conversations between G1 and G3 and G4? And then how do you keep alive the story of that wealth creation? I think that's going to be critical as we have opportunities because of the kind of aging families. And the work and service side, folks are aging in place. I think that's no surprise. And what does that mean? So that means your Rolodex, that'll date me, your Rolodex will need to be different, right? And so folks are doing a lot of work of what you have to do physically in the space that you're in to age in place. The outside services that have to come in, the cost for those services. We had one family that it was about $400,000 a year to bring in folks. I've heard of that range from that to $1.5 million, depending on where you are. And so what does that mean for your family to do that? And what is your role in that of both finding providers and actually assisting those families to be able to do that? Health care support is the breakout that I'm going to talk a little more about. That's a growing area and an area that a number of you are working on. We're starting on that, and I want to talk a little about our journey on that. Generational issues are going to rise. We can see that. Governance is becoming increasingly important. Many of us have done work in that area, and it's been a sort of a good to have. It will be essential for families as these families grow, as the size of the families grow, and as we move into a 3rd full generation and a 4th generation, that those things are in place for families to be able to make decisions. So critical to you, what do you need to be able to do in this. So one of the pieces is really around what does your team look like? And so we work with, and many of you know Jolene Godfrey, and Jolene is interesting in that she said to me something about 2 years ago, which is what they've been finding is that their trainers need to be within a decade of those that they are training, right? For the most effective training for them around financial education and a variety of the other issues. So what does that mean for us as we're working with 3 generations and potentially 4 generations? What does your team need to look like? Many of us are very, very skilled at doing, and not all of us are skilled at teaching and mentoring and training. It's going to be a critical skill as we take a team and build a team that is across generations on our side. And I think that some of us have spent energy on that, and some of us need to spend a lot more energy on that. We're working on that regularly within our group, and I know a number of you are. But that's a skill that you're going to be able to have to hone if you are going to be successful in working with families. I think this kind of ongoing issue of understanding what is aging and what is a health issue is going to be another critical component. We need to educate ourselves on what that looks like and how to identify early signs of cognitive impairment. We need training on that on our staff. We're struggling with that right now with an 82-year-old in our group that we work with, and and he also is a classic patriarch who is controlling and also does not share a lot of information. So we have a lot of individual meetings with him. And so think about your clients and what that looks like, and then what you need to do to be able to both memorialize the work you're doing, and even on your end, having multiple people in meetings, because we're having some memory lapses with him, and we don't know to what extent those memory lapses are aging or the signs of something greater. And then how do you start having those conversations with the family around those concerns, and with him around those concerns? We're just starting those. Obviously, those are not easy discussions, but I think we all need some training around those issues. So healthcare has been a big piece of this for a while, and it's growing. We started in that part of the journey around medical claims handling. So we were finding some of our clients were struggling with medical claims handling. It was getting more complex, and so we started looking for some outside providers that could do that. At the same time, we started looking at how we could provide healthcare support to families, and we started through a connection with Mayo Clinic that was doing some of that work. And what that then led us to talk about is to start talking with our clients themselves as to, sort of interesting to always do a check, right, of see what your clients need and how this would fit within kind of their life. And some of our clients were very interested in us partnering and bringing resources to them to find better options around specialists, to kind of make sure that their current care, someone could have a second set of eyes on that, and other management of their health care. And then others really felt that was an issue for them that was too close, and that the privacy issues around that they really were not sure that they wanted that as the final frontier. They'd given us their family's wealth, they'd given us their family's addiction issues, right, and the issues that we deal with in that, and now we're kind of going to that next phase. And so that's been an interesting dialogue with some families, but the ones that are interested in us playing that role do see that as a benefit. We're currently still in the process of evaluating some of the options. There's a growing number of options out there. There's folks within this room that have done some work on that. Rona from Vogel Consulting has certainly been, and one of the, I think, benefits for us of both Fox and other organizations is there's a group out there that you can talk with. And so Rona's helpful, other people are helpful of just how are they seeing that. But the next piece of that really is HIPAA, privacy, medical record collection, and a lot of other things that we just have not done before. Some of you may have, we have not done a lot of work in that area. And so we're learning, I think, but the other piece of that is the emotional side of your advisors being aware of very critical health issues in families, and families not wanting to share some of those with some of your advisory team, with some of their children, with some of their advisors. And I know this seems similar to kind of how we view confidentiality and privacy. It feels different to me when I'm having those conversations or when I'm hearing about it. This health issue seems more center, more personal, more individual for individuals. So we're just in the early stages, I think, of that. And sometimes I talk about things in early stages just because I want to see what other people are doing in that and to have resources that we're able to share. But I think that's a piece of what all of us are going to need to kind of manage as we go through this and this aging process.